إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون وقال تعالى وما آتاكم الرسول فخذوه وما نهاكم عنه فانتهوا. وعن أنس رضي الله عنه قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى أكون أحب إليه من والده وولده والناس أجمعين. رواه البخاري. Dear brothers and respected sisters, all of us, on account of our iman, we love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we also want, like in any other relationship where we love someone, we want them to love us as well. All of us, we love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we want that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should love us. The wilayah, the friendship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is given only to those whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. And we strive to get the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we know we cannot have love from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without iman. And we know that there is no iman without loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and having love for the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam as well. The mushrikeen, they believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when they denied the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, they were referred to as the Aduwullah, the enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Without the love and obedience of the Prophet ﷺ, without the love of the Prophet ﷺ, a person can never be loved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A person can never be that friend of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A person can only be the Aduwullah, can be the enemy of Allah, but not the friend of Allah, not somebody that Allah loves without that person loving Prophet ﷺ. And we know that this is part of our iman. And not only is that part of our iman is not just to love the Prophet ﷺ, but that the perfection of our iman is in loving the Prophet ﷺ more than we love anything else. Anas radiallahu anhu narrates, and Imam Bukhari brings this hadith, that the Prophet ﷺ says, "La yu'minu ahadukum." None of you truly believes, meaning his iman isn't fully complete. "Hatta akuna ahabba ilayhi," until I become more beloved to that person, min walidihi wa waladihi wan nasi ajma'in, than his own parents and his own children, than any other person. That the completion, the perfection of our iman is not just in loving the Prophet, that's the base entry. We love the Prophet, that's part of our iman. The perfection of our iman is that love for the Prophet becomes dominant over anything else and anyone else that we love. That is the perfection of our iman. And it's important to understand when we say to love the Prophet, what does that love entail? Like what does it mean when we say we love the Prophet or that we must love the Prophet? The ulama have explained that love is of two types. There's a natural love, natural love, and there's a rational love, there's a rational love. The natural love is like, for example, the love of a father for his children, or the love of a mother for her children. It's natural. A person loves their children, doesn't choose to love their children, they just naturally love their children. And no matter what, they will always love their children. Allah forbid, if that person's children were disobedient or they were hard to deal with or whatever the issue may be, they will always love their children. That's just natural within them. It's not by choice, it's not something they can choose to do and choose not to do. It's natural. The other type of love is a rational love, which is that a person chooses to love someone based off of certain matters. And this is the type of love that we are mukallaf, that we are responsible and accountable for when it comes to the Prophet ﷺ. That we choose, we realize who the Prophet ﷺ was and what he did for us and what he will do for us even in the hereafter in terms of interceding for us and such. That based off of these reasons, we choose and we decide to love the Prophet ﷺ. And this rational love should be such that it becomes dominant over any other love that we may have for anyone. For example, we know that we love our children naturally, and we don't want to do anything that will cause them hurt, that will cause them to become upset. But if we see a child eating or drinking with their left hand, and this goes against Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, we will tell the child in a nice manner to not do that, and to do it in the proper manner, which is with your right hand. But if that child persists, then at some point we will admonish the child, even if that child will become upset from it. But we will do that because the violation of the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, that love of the Prophet ﷺ and his commands, then becomes more dominant. We say that no, regardless if that upsets the child, we will correct the child. We tell them that what they're doing is wrong. That rational love will become dominant over anything else. And eventually what will happen though, is as we learn more about the Prophet ﷺ, as we think more about the Prophet ﷺ, study more about the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, that rational love will convert into just natural love as well. We will naturally begin to love the Prophet ﷺ, and in fact love him more than we love anyone else. And that is then the istikmal, or the completion, the perfection of a person's iman that the Prophet mentions. A person should be able to recognize their love for someone, because there's signs for it. There's signs for love. For anything, there's signs. And just in that manner, for a person's love for someone, there are certain signs. And we can see these signs from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his love for the Prophet, because the Prophet was the Habib of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he was the beloved of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we see these signs of the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the Prophet, and we can see that we have to look to see, do we have those same signs as well? And in general, some of these signs that entail love for someone. The first of those is that when you love someone, you talk about them and you remember them often. And the easiest conversation starter, if you want to talk to someone and you don't know what to talk to them about, if they have children, ask about their children. If they have, if they're grandparents, they have grandchildren, ask about their grandchildren. A person can start a conversation and continue a conversation as long as you want them to, talking about somebody like their children or their grandchildren, because they have so much love for them. They talk about them often. They bring up their own children or their grandchildren often, because when they love someone, they like to talk about them. And not just their children or their grandchildren as a person, but even different aspects and different details of their children. Right? The hair, the eyes, the cheeks, how they giggle and how they run, and how they cry, or whatever the case would be. To talk about all these different aspects. Because when you love someone, you want to talk about not just them, but also different aspects of them as well. And when we see in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the Prophet often, many times. And there's only about five times when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to the Prophet by his name. وَمَا مُحَمَّدٌ إِلَّا رَسُولٌ. Muhammad is not but except a messenger. وَمَا كَانَ مُحَمَّدٌ أَبَا أَحَدٍ مِّن رِجَالِكُمْ وَلَكِنْ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ وَخَاتَمُ النَّبِيِّينَ. Muhammad is not the father of anyone, but he is the messenger of Allah, and he's the seal of the prophethood. That وَآمِنُوا بِمَا نُزِّلَ عَلَى مُحَمَّدٍ. Believe in what has been revealed on Muhammad. That Muhammad Rasulullah, Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. And mentioning from Isa alayhi salam that there will be a messenger after me whose name will be Ahmad. These are just the 5 places where the Prophet is referred to by name. Everywhere else, Allah SWT talks about the Prophet and he uses different titles and uses different descriptions or such about the Prophet. That in praiseworthy manners. لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ عَزِيزٌ عَلَيْهِ مَا عَنِتُّمْ حَرِيصٌ عَلَيْكُمْ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ رَءُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ. That a messenger has come to you, he's worried about you, cares about you, he's very caring, he's very loving, he's merciful. That وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. That he's a mercy to all of creation essentially. And وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. And this talks about the Prophet mentioning that he's on the best of manners. Just again and again, the Prophet is spoken about in the Quran. Allah talks about him and also always remembers him and mentions him in good ways. And not just that, but also different aspects of the Prophet as well. Allah talks about the heart of the Prophet. That قُلْ مَنْ كَانَ عَدُوًّا لِجِبْرِيلَ فَإِنَّهُ نَزَّلَهُ عَلَى قَلْبِكَ. That Jibreel is the one who has brought down the revelation on your heart. Talks about the heart of the Prophet. Allah SWT refers to the face of the Prophet. قَدْ نَرَى تَقَلُّبَ وَجْهِكَ فِي السَّمَاءِ. That we have seen your face looking into the heavens. Allah SWT talks about the hand and the neck of the Prophet. That لَا تَجْعَلْ يَدَكَ مَغْلُولَةً إِلَىٰ عُنُقِكَ. Do not make your hand tight to your neck. It's a metaphor to mean that do not be stingy. But talking about the hand of the Prophet, talking about the neck of the Prophet. Talking about the tongue of the Prophet. فَلَا تُحَرِّكْ بِهِ لِسَانَكَ لِتَعْجَلَ بِهِ. That don't rush your tongue to try to memorize the Quran. Talking about the eyes of the Prophet. وَلَا تَمُدَّنَّ عَيْنَيْكَ. That do not stretch your eyes toward these things that we have given others. Talking about the chest of the Prophet. أَلَمْ نَشْرَحْ لَكَ صَدْرَكَ. Have we not expanded your chest? And in the same surah talking about the back of the Prophet. الَّذِي أَنْقَضَ ظَهْرَكَ. Right, we removed the burden that was weighing down on your back. Right? Similarly, just like we would talk about our children and different aspects of Allah SWT does the same with the Prophet. And the Sahaba radiallahu anhu, and they who came after that, did similar. Because they also had the love for the Prophet. They didn't just record what the Prophet said, and they didn't just record what the Prophet did, and they did not just record what occurred in the presence of the Prophet, but they recorded all these different details about the Prophet as well. How was his height? How were his shoulders? How was his forehead? How was his hair? His eyebrows, his beard, his teeth, spacing between his teeth, the hair on his chest, the texture of his palms, all aspects of the Prophet they recorded. And all of this, by the way, is also available in English translations with commentary in English as well. Look at the Shama'il of Imam Tirmidhi, for example. It's printed in English, translated in English. These are all available, right? They recorded that. Why did they record the hair on the chest of the Prophet? Why did somebody talk about that? Because they loved the Prophet and they talked about all aspects of it. Everything they observed about him, they talked about it. That's a sign when you love someone, is you talk about them. You talk about them often. We know that in the current month that we're in Rabiul Awwal, that we know that a lot of people within this month, read about the Prophet, recite salawat, do whatever, and we know that dates do have, they do trigger emotions. It's natural, right? Dates trigger certain emotions. A person, loves their children throughout the year, but then on their birthday there may be something special that they feel, or spouses with, on their wedding anniversaries. Somebody passes away, you miss them throughout the year, but then on that day they passed away, you remember them more often. Doesn't necessarily mean that on that day there must be some occasion, there must be some event, there must be some specific act necessarily. But we just know that dates trigger emotion. That's natural, and that's fine. But the sign for our love of the Prophet is that our remembrance of him cannot be limited to any time, any day, any part of the year. It must be throughout the year. But that's the first sign, that when you love someone, you remember them often. The second sign is that when you love someone, you respect them. You respect them. Allah SWT teaches the respect of the Prophet in the Quran, in numerous places. For example, that you should mind your voice when you're in the presence of the Prophet. That لا ترفعوا أصواتكم فوق صوت النبي ولا تجهروا له بالقول. That do not raise your voices above the voice of the Prophet. That's against etiquette with the Prophet. That's if you're in a gathering with the Prophet, do not just get up and leave. Seek his permission. إنما المؤمنون الذين آمنوا بالله ورسوله إذا كانوا معه ولا يؤذن جميعا لم يذهبوا حتى يستأذنوا. That they don't just get up and leave until they seek permission. That's the respect with the Prophet. Allah tells us, don't address him like you address anyone else. The Prophet is different. that لا تجعلوا دعاء الرسول بينكم كدعاء بعضكم بعضا. And then obviously we know that Allah also teaches us send salutations about the Prophet when you hear his name. That these are all different ways that Allah taught the respect of the Prophet. And we see that not just the Sahaba, but those that came after them, they also showed a lot of respect with the Prophet, a lot of awe to the Prophet. Not just in his gathering, but even after when his name was mentioned as well. It's mentioned by Mus'ab ibn Abdullah that when Imam Malik mentioned the Prophet, his color would change until those around him found it difficult to bear. That was from the awe and the respect and the love when the Prophet's name was mentioned. Imam Malik has a whole book on hadith, and you know Imam Malik's involvement in that. It's mentioned about Ja'far al-Sadiq, that he was a person who used to smile often. He would smile a lot. But when the Prophet was mentioned, his awe and respect was such that they would see that his skin would become pale from the awe that he had for the Prophet. That's respect and awe for the Prophet. And we know that at minimum, we show respect by when his name is mentioned that we send salawat on the Prophet. The third sign of when you love someone is you listen to them, you obey them, there's obedience. More than 10 times in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned to obey Him and to obey the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Well, dear Allah wa Rasul, in different ways. Obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and obey the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in a clear and all-encompassing manner, وَمَا آتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. Whatever the Prophet brings you, take it. And whatever he tells you to stay away from it, you stay away from it. Without conditions, in its encompassing manner. And that doesn't just entail the fara'id, that doesn't just entail acting on the fard and staying away from the haram. It's not limited to just the obligatory. That includes ittiba' sunnah, that includes following the sunnah of the Prophet as well. Imagine, if we saw a parent who, despite financial capabilities, doesn't buy toys for their children, doesn't buy candy, doesn't buy snacks, only provides the bare essentials for their child. We would say that, what is that parent doing? Right? We won't say that this parent has a lot of love for that child. If he's only taking care of the basic essentials and never goes above that, despite having the means to do so, we would say that there's something wrong in that relation. There's something wrong in that relationship, in that expression of love. There's something missing. If all we do is follow just the fard, and we stay away from just the haram, and that's it. Although we're meeting the basic obligations, the absolute necessities, where is the love for the Prophet ﷺ in following the sunnah? The proper following and obedience of the Prophet ﷺ, the proper ittiba' of the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, the love of the Prophet ﷺ entails we follow him, and the proper following of him is to obey his, to go and abide by sunnah as well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهُ وَيَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ ذُنُوبَكُمْ وَاللَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. If we wrap up with where we started, we said we want the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows us how you can get his love. It says that say, if you love Allah, then follow me, meaning follow the Prophet يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهُ. Allah will love you. Obey the Prophet, follow his sunnah, Allah will love you, وَيَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ, and Allah will forgive you. The way that you get the love from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the way you get Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to love you is you also then follow the sunnah of the Prophet as well. And yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us tawfiq to have proper love for him, for his Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, to obey him, to obey the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and to act upon the ahkam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to follow the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. بارك الله لنا ولكم في القرآن المجيد ونفعنا وإياكم بالآيات والذكر الحكيم. أستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الله ملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين وأذل الشرك والمشركين ودمر أعداءك أعداء الدين اللهم انصر من نصر دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وجعلنا منهم واخذل من خذل دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ولا تجعلنا معهم عباد الله رحمكم الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون واذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون أقيموا الصلاة.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Please make sure yourself is straight and is full, that you're standing shoulder to shoulder. Do not let your prayer request appear as being for anything else. We'll give that something for you toward the end of the quarter to see how it Allahu Akbar. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. قد أفلح من تزكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. الله سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hold on, just take a minute. My name is Yasser Aslam, and I have the honor and the privilege to actually engage in our work full time. I've been cases here for over a decade in this highlight area. Full-time work with volunteers, we've been doing work for our obligation. All of us, Allah is an obligation. Non-Muslims, with our network providing literature, and for new Muslims hosting classes. Taken before the pandemic for healthcare, etc. Inshallah, the brothers can give it, inshallah. for $20. That includes shipping and mailing, all the services that we provide free to dear Muslims and non-Muslims. They ask for an info packet. Or for $100, we can send 10 of these to anywhere in the United States. Comes with a copy of the Quran, brochures, some books. There's some books available also if you guys would like to get them and show a lot about the guys. Encourage all of you guys to get it. You are set up and again, if you guys need anything you are interested in volunteering, please do this out by yourself. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Few announcements. Do I want to offer the Islamic Club? We are